Welcome back to Critic Cup. So let's talk today about Inception, one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films of all time, probably next to The Dark Knight. Prestige is up there too, but I think Inception is probably one of his most perfect films. The Dark Knight maybe doesn't count in listing Christopher Nolan films because a lot of the characters and a lot of the stories, right, that were in those films were already created by someone else, where the films that he wrote as well as directed, that's such a rare thing to see, that a director who can write well or a writer who can direct well. They're both very story-driven roles, but they come at it from two different aspects of the story. One is on creating the story, one is on executing it. Both require a thorough understanding of the story, but a lot of people don't have the chops for both. I really admire Christopher Nolan's work, and Inception, I think, is one of his most brilliant. This is just my own personal feeling, but Interstellar, good movie. Dunkirk, great movie. Tenet, it was pretty good. Here's the thing I think that he seems to be maybe losing focus on in a few of those films. He likes playing with these high concepts, these complicated ideas, which is great and makes the film's really interesting, but if you go too deep into that, you can lose the narrative, the compelling part of the story, and to, tell a moving narrative. It's one thing to watch, oh, that's an interesting idea, or that's a cool concept, but to be moved by a story is, I think, what is truly beautiful about art in general, but especially storytelling, that we can connect with characters, that, you can watch a film and be moved by the plot or by these characters or the moral or theme of the story. These are all amazing, beautiful things about storytelling. Especially Tenet, I think I really feel strongly was losing the narrative part of that, because I don't know, I didn't feel really emotionally connected to any of the characters, or didn't have really much depth. And I think the most depth in any character in that film was Robert Pattinson's character, and that was great. But I didn't feel like it was as strong as a movie like Inception, where I think Inception was the perfect blend of both. That he had this high-level concept of going multi-levels deep into dreams, which, I mean, if you just pitched that as a movie idea, it'd be like, what? No one would go and watch that. But then he has this emotional through line with this character development of Leonardo DiCaprio's character that is amazing, and unfolds his story with his wife, and how this affected her and then led to her suicide. Spoilers. There's some shallow characters now, like Tom Hardy's character, I feel like could have been better developed, but I mean, it's already a pretty long movie in itself. But it's playing with the high-level concept as well as telling a good story. A good story doesn't need to be complicated, right? A good story just, ties in basic emotions that we all have, the grief, loss, sadness, fear, all these things that are just basic human emotions that everyone goes through. And you can do it in this crazy way that no one's experienced that, but we can all relate to it, even so, because we've all been through something similar in a totally different context in our own lives, but it's still relatable, even though it's this crazy, wild idea. But it was a perfect blend. It had that crazy high-level concept, which I love. And, it's not that his other films aren't interesting in that way, but I feel like Inception was the perfect marriage of the two, had a high-level concept while telling a good story that connected with people. What do you think? Do you think I'm wrong about this? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, keep telling good stories.